I'll be honest, there's times where me and like the group I'm working in, just in general, every place I've worked, when that instance comes up, sometimes it's an eye roll. It's like, oh, we got to go to this. Now we got to do this
Yeah.
HR function. Sometimes, depending what it is, like, all right, cool. But regardless of what it is, from the HR perspective of it, why is it critical to have those types of things in a business setting?
Yeah. I mean, I think multiple reasons. I think you can never please everybody, and I think there are always going to be some employees at a company that are a lot more engaged and a
Hmm.
lot more involved in extracurricular
Right.
activities, if you will. So I think you know in that respect, you would have to you can't not provide any type of extracurricular activity,
Right.
right? There always has to be a sense of like a camaraderie, a sense of a team, right, and belonging to something bigger than just your day to day and your role. So we try to facilitate that with allowing people to let go of their work for a minute, whether it be like a happy hour, like get to
Hmm.
chill and engage with your colleagues and talk about the struggles of your day, or even get to learn about somebody else's job and what it is that they do. So I think that matters to us because not only does it keep employees hopefully happy, but it kind of stimulates a more positive culture where you're instilling in people like, hey, work is important, but work is not absolutely everything, and we're not doing brain surgery, we're not curing cancer at the end of the day. Like, nobody will drop dead right now if you take a 20-minute break to do this silly activity with your colleagues, or to make a smoothie outside with your colleagues, or to do a happy hour at like 4 p.m. on a Friday. So we just try to instill that in people, so it's not all work and no play, but we try to find a happy medium and a happy balance.
Yeah, after a certain period of time, that's what I started to realize. Like that's the thing. 'Cause sometimes I'd be like, "Man, we got to do this. Like, I got stuff to do," and it's obviously it's not mandatory to go, but that's as I started stopped being a sourpuss about it. I was like, you know what? It makes sense why they're doing this. Because imagine if, like you were saying, if there was nothing at all,
Right.
I don't know how great the retention is going to be at that place if you guys just go work and leave only. It makes it difficult too, because then you're not really looking for, and especially if you know ahead of time, like Friday, it's going to be a happy hour. You have something to kind of look forward to during the week. Let's say you have a crappy week in terms of a lot of stuff to do, meetings. At least you know it's like, well, at least end of the week we're going to do that as a group.
And I think for us in like a people ops, or like if you're in people ops, or if you're in an HR function at a company, we kind of view the overall organization as a wheel, or like a snowball, right? So everything in some way intertwines with one another or correlates with one another. So if employees aren't happy, and if they're bored, and if they're overworked, then you're going to start worrying about retention strategy and retention numbers, and what your
Hmm.
turnover rates look like. And then what that does is, A, cost the company a lot of money to replace people, and B, puts a lot of strain on a recruiting team, or a recruiter, or whatever that size is, right? Whatever that function looks like.
Hmm.
But it puts a lot of stress on those individuals, who are then having to backfill, depending on how large your company is, but like 5, 6, 10, 15 positions at any given time, which is obviously very, very challenging. And I think, it's no one will ever fully understand how time consuming and expensive a recruiting process is, unless they're
Hmm.
actually, if they're in it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so I think, again, it's one big kind of snowball, right? So if employees are happy, and if you give them the opportunity to put their feet up and like kick back every once in a while and have fun and laugh with their colleagues, then you're more likely to build not only stronger relationships with the team, but you're going to probably build a more positive company culture, and people are likely to stay there longer.
Do you feel like this is that mindset is like a regional thing? For example, by regional I mean like for example, we're in SoCal, right?
Right.
Lot of these like hip companies are doing more things that you guys are doing. You hear that about stuff in like the Pacific Northwest, like the Portland area, Seattle area, New York, Boston. You don't, at least for me, and I try and read about stuff like this, don't really hear about it within like the coast. It's like if you're along a coastline, let's do the fun stuff. If you're within the coastlines, it's maybe the more traditional. Not to say they don't do anything at all, but
Right.
it seems like it's a little more. Yeah, I guess the word just being traditional in that. Have you? I don't know if you've noticed that on your end. Where I think definitely here in California, it's like that. Where it's I feel like
Yeah,
people know that that's the thing that we have a lot of companies have out here is open
yeah,
bar
no,
or whatever it might be.
yeah, I agree. I think it definitely depends. I think region has a lot to do with it. I think even the type of company, and I
Mm,
think also the how old the company is. And I hate
mm.
to use that word like old, young, and we always
I
try to
think
stay
that's a
away
good
from
point
that.
though.
But with a lot of new tech companies, a lot of startups, I think it all even just stems from I talked about traditional HR teams and kind of how they've progressed and how they've modernized. I think we used to be very process centric, and I think now it's a lot more. Our work models are based a lot more heavily on results now, and I even think of like working from home, right?
Mhm,
Or some companies allow fully remote work. Some companies are flexible, like hey, I can text my boss and be like, hey, I'm not feeling too well today. Like I'll just work from home.
mhm,
And so I think as long as results are being met, companies are a lot more likely to be flexible with their employees. So I think a lot of that has to do though with region, with the type of company that you're working at, how old the company is, and how modern and forward and progressive they are
mhm,
as an organization. So I mean, yeah, I definitely think that it can be regional. I think a lot of companies are doing their best to get caught up, especially companies that are a lot more, traditional with their
mhm,
thought process and the way they think. I mean, the company I worked at prior to the one that I work at now was very traditional.
mhm,
If comparing and contrasting to where I work now, even as far as like dress code and strict start and stop times. Whereas the company I work at now, we're a lot more flexible. Again,
mhm,
assuming that results are being met. So if your work is being done and it's being done well, people are typically not breathing down your neck about what you're wearing to work that day, or if you started at 9 a.m. on the dot, or if you get to work from home, or if you get to go to a happy hour. It tends to be a lot more flexible, and I think the newer wave of companies are following that model. We're a lot more
yeah.
focused on the results and what that looks like versus, hey, did you start at 9 a.m. and did you clock out exactly
Mhm.
at 6 p.m.